Hey Church Girl, welcome to Church Girl Gang, a podcast where we get to talk about life, living for Jesus, and everything in between, and how that affects us in the here and now. My name is Kenzie, and I'll be your host, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation with you. Hey Church Girl, welcome to Church Girl Gang. I'm so glad that you're here. Well, just a reminder, my name is Kenzie and I am your host for this podcast. And if you haven't been with us before, this podcast is for girls who are following after Jesus and who want to live their lives in a way that honors him. But I hope that you had a fantastic Easter. I know I did. It was a really good one. Lots of church, food, and naps, always. That is the Easter tradition around my house, at least. And so, yeah, I hope you had a fantastic Easter and that you got to celebrate the resurrection and spend some time with your family, spend some time with your friends. And I hope that you also had a lot of food. That just feels right on Easter. But anyway, today's conversation is just going to be a little wrap up on Easter. We are going to be talking with my good friend Savannah about Mary and her role in Easter and also just her role in the biblical context and what we can take from her story and apply to our lives. So that's what today's podcast is. I hope that you're excited, but let's get into that conversation right now. All right, and here we are. This is our conversation with Savannah, and just a reminder about Savannah, if you listen to our very first live recording, Savannah was there. She was a part of that podcast recording, and Savannah and I have known each other for a few years, since high school. Yeah. We've known each other, and I'm really, really glad that you're here. Just also, Savannah is a longtime church girl, longtime lover of Jesus, and so I'm really excited that you're going to be here and that you're going to be sharing about Mary. This is going to be a really cool conversation.
I'm excited. I love talking about Mary a lot, actually. Yeah. So I kind of have like a personal connection with her in some way. So I'm super excited.
That's awesome. Okay, well, before we get into that, I started thinking, since we were talking about Mary, one thing that was really big for me when I was a kid, if you grew up in church, maybe you remember doing this, but you would, like, every Christmas, you would put on, like, a nativity play, and the thing that I always wanted to be, and I think most girls wanted to be, was Mary.
I was Mary, actually.
It was
twice.
Like
Yes.
It's like the starring role, you know? And so I think I got to do that one time, but they didn't. I'm not a good actor. I'm terrible. So, okay. Were you in any plays as a kid? Did you get to do it?
Actually,
anything like that?
Yes. Yeah. I was in several plays. So my very first one was third grade, and I was in a play called Bye Bye Birdie, in a musical, actually.
Okay, yeah.
It's a classic, very classic musical. And then fifth grade, I was in Oliver, the story of Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
And I just played a thief and an orphan, so super easy, no biggie. And then when I got to middle school, sixth grade, I did several plays for theater, a comedy and a drama. And the comedy was 13 Reasons Not to Be in a Play.
Okay.
So it was just very satirical, and it was good. And then a drama called Sticks and Stones in Cyberspace, just about cyberbullying, since that's when social media really started picking up.
Right.
And so now that I think about it as an adult, I'm like, wow, that's so clever. Yeah, and then, like you mentioned, with the whole, church skits and whatnot, I played Mary for the very first time when I was 15, and I had braces, and I was like, I don't remember Mary having braces or anything.
But you did.
But I did. And so, yeah, I got to play her for a Christmas skit, so
yeah,
it was fun.
That's so fun. I think the biggest role that I really got to play in a church musical was a singing tree. So, and I remember actually we were like doing this rap as the trees. Oh, it was awesome. And I had these glasses. Everyone was supposed to wear sunglasses. By the way, I was like, just to put this in context, I was like 6. And everyone was supposed to wear sunglasses. And so I had spy sunglasses. And you guys, like, I was in a spy.
The ones that reflect?
Yes. I was in a spies, and I'm still, like, if I could be a super spy, I would do it, like, right now.
Those made you feel powerful.
So, yeah. So here's the trick. Everyone's turned around, right? As the trees, and we're rapping, and then we turn back around and we face the audience and we look at everyone. Well, I had my spy sunglasses on, and so they had the reflectors, the mirrors in them. So I felt like I was tricking everyone, where I was like, I can see the entire audience and no one even knows, and it just made me feel more special than all the other trees. So anyway, that was probably my biggest starring role.
I love everything about that, Kenzie.
It was the best. It was a great time, and I loved being a tree. I can still remember the rap and everything.
Are you gonna give us a little taste of that?
I can. So we would yes. We would just say, how much wood could a woodcutter cut if a woodcutter could cut wood? And then we turn around and go, huh? So that was our rap. It was amazing. It was a great time. Okay, so on a more serious note, I really want to talk about Mary. I'm really excited about this because I think we think of Mary as the Christmas girl.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But just coming off of Easter, I think we forget what a big role she plays in the Easter story as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really, really excited about that. But you've done a lot of research about Mary.
Yeah. So
tell us what you know.
Some things to know about Mary is that she was a Galilean woman, and really she was between the ages of 13 and 15.
That's crazy.
And yeah, that's super crazy. I mean, and that she was also, betrothed to Mary Joseph. Mm-hmm. And actually, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when she's actually married to Joseph already, but they're still not living together. Like, there's a whole different process to it.
Yeah, very long process.
Yeah, either way, when she found out that she was going to be carrying the Son of God, it was quite the scandal.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, too, she really didn't have much of a childhood like most kids and teens do today. She was already a working woman. She was out in the fields doing all her work. She was helping with children. She probably had already helped deliver children too, I'm sure. I mean, she was already doing a lot of stuff that a lot of kids don't do today. And I think that's crazy because, like, what were we doing when we were 13 or 15?
Right.
Like, what were you doing? I mean, for me, I was still shopping at Justice for Girls.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. That was one of my favorite stores. And I actually remember the last time I went shopping there. My mom was so embarrassed because I was like, I just wanted to buy out the whole store. And she was like, Kenzie, you can't do that. And also, we're like on the edge of being too old for this store.
Confession, I shopped there until I was 15.
Oh my God.
I will proudly say that because I was so small and just super, super tiny, and I still fit in their clothes.
Yeah.
And they were actually kind of like decently priced.
Yeah.
So my mom was like, sure, why not?
Why not? Let's go there. Yeah. I think when I was 13, I'm trying to remember things that I was doing. I still ate chicken nuggets like every day for lunch. Yeah. Actually, yeah, same. When I was 13, I just switched schools, started going to a school in San Marcos, so that was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And I was reading the Percy Jackson series.
Fun. I met the author, actually.
Wow. That's
Fun
amazing. That's amazing.
But like these are the things we were doing.
Right.
And it's hard to put that into perspective from Mary's point of view. And I mean, we all know her as the mother of Jesus and that she was a virgin. And so these are just some of the basics, things that were taught in early Bible school. And one thing that I really, really love about her is that she was there through it all for Jesus's life. She was obviously there when he was born. She was there to witness his first miracle, and she was there for his death.
Wow.
And we forget that she's there and playing this supportive mother, She was called to this really great mission that would be difficult and super demanding, but she faithfully said yes.
Yeah.
With, just being the age that she was, she faithfully said yes. So, Kenzie, was there ever a time where you didn't want to say yes to God?
Oh, absolutely. I'm thinking there's so many times. I'm thinking specifically of when I was deciding where to go to college. And I remember feeling this pull on my heart to move to Phoenix, to go to college in Phoenix. I actually went to Grand Canyon University, Lopes Up, the best school ever. What do they say? Biggest party in college basketball. Yes. Great school. But I was feeling this pull to move to Phoenix. And for me, I was very nervous about that. And I remember actually asking a lot of different people, should I go to this school that's nearby, or should I go to the school in Phoenix? And really what I was doing was I was looking for people to say, oh, you should go to school nearby, that's a good idea. So I did for an entire semester. And I remember during that time it felt like God was just literally pulling away all of the things that were holding me in that spot that were keeping me from moving to Phoenix. God ripped away every single one, and I was so sad, y'all. I cannot even begin to tell you, but it was really a gift that God was giving me, that he was saying okay, I'm going to clear away all the distractions. So there's no reason for you to stay here. Just go do what I was calling you to do. Man. Anyway, after a long time, yes, I did say yes. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say yes sometimes.
Oh, in college too. That's a big life decision. I think one of the times, there's countless times, honestly, where I have hesitated to God. And one of the times was, so I actually went to the University of Mary Hardin Baylor, go Crew. And one of the traditions that they have there, it's a small private Christian university, and one of the traditions that they have there is called Easter pageant, and it's where they tell the story of Jesus, and they just share the gospel through a production, almost like a theater production. And
so cool.
Yeah, and it was really cool because the roles of Jesus, Mary, and a couple other people like John the Baptist were hand chosen by the president of UMHB.
Wow.
And so I remember getting a call from his office and asking that I go there. And at first I was like, what did I do? Am I in trouble? What's going on? And it didn't click that he called me in to ask me to be Mary for this tradition. And it was the 80th Easter pageant. So it's a big deal. And he asked me, he sat me down in his very, very fancy office. And I was super intimidated. And he asked me to be Mary. And I remember I was like, I don't know. I'll think about it. And he was just trying to persuade me. And then I was like, well, I'll be student teaching, the next year. I was like, I don't think I can do it because my schedule is going to be hectic. And immediately he goes, well, we've had student teachers before. And I was like, ooh, okay, yes, I'll do it. And I didn't know how big of a deal it was until we actually started prepping for Easter pageant and how big of an impact it would make. And typically, I think there's like a total of 5,000 people that showed up to UMHB, I think, for each show. Like, you just add up the numbers. And then they started live streaming like a couple years before. So when you think about it, a lot of people were reached and were able to hear the gospel from different countries.
Wow, yeah.
And to think that I could have said no to that is mind-blowing.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I think it's super, I think we forget that all of us at one time or another will be called by God to do something that we would rather run away from and evade. So.
Yeah. So during that time, you did a lot of study about Mary to prepare for this role.
Yeah.
So just in studying her, how hard do you think it was for her to actually say yes to God when she was called?
Well, oh man, that must have been pretty difficult, honestly. Again, 13 to 15 years old, and immediately the angel comes to her and says, do not be afraid.
Right.
And I think what made her decision a little easier, I guess easier, if that's the right word, is that he tells her, you have found favor with God. And that's got to be such a beautiful feeling, you know? So already she's motivated by love. And even through this favor, and she knows this, she's still humble. She's a humble soul that magnifies God. In the end, you know, she put her fear aside, honestly, I would think. I think she put her fear aside and immediately wanted to give all the glory to God and just magnify him. And so, I mean, I'm sure that after the angel left, do we really know like how she felt, what she thought? Like, did that just happen? But I mean, I'm sure she was fearful the whole time too, throughout her pregnancy. And I mean, well, I mean, here are some things that Mary was up against. Well, really, Mary was up against the culture, right? Yes. So, and I mean, even today, you would be up against the culture, like it, you know, to have an unmarried mother and a virgin,
and a virgin, and especially in her culture, if that happened to you, you were killed, like immediately. If anyone found out, that was it. You're dead. And so I think for her to say yes requires a big dose of faith in her life. So obviously we know that Mary was a very faith-filled girl, right?
Almost a disciple like that. So and it's crazy because you forget that she had to go through the rumors, you know, the ugly looks, just comments from people, and even from Joseph. You know, I mean, that must have been a really tough conversation, and we just don't think about that. And then to be almost full term and traveling to Bethlehem, a very long distance, you know, on a donkey. That just blows my mind, because we hear the story and we're like, like that happened. But then you really think about everything they had to go through on their journey just to get there, and then to, you know, give birth in a stable. And again, it's very humbling. A very humble thing to do. The other part of her story that I think we don't always think about, just talking about being faithful, is not just that she said yes to God in carrying Jesus and in having Jesus, but then she said yes to God daily by raising Jesus, which I don't know if that's a very easy job or a very difficult job. You know what I'm saying? Right.
Like, you're raising the perfect kid, but does that play games with your head? I don't know. Anyway,
Oh my gosh.
But then to add on top of that, she had to say yes to God in a big way when Jesus was taken. He was beaten. He was murdered. And she had to continue to have faith in God and say yes to him during that journey.
We forget that her journey doesn't end at Jesus's birth. If anything, it begins, you know, and that's what's so mind-blowing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Easter pageant and my experience. Just like any, you know, theater production or play, you want to get to know your cast members. And we're actually recommended, like, grow with these people. And so I became friends, really good friends with my friend Joey, who played Jesus. You've met him recently. And it was a big thing, you know, because we had never met before. And so I was like, how am I going to grow close to this person who's supposed to be my son? And it was such a God thing. And it worked out so well. And so I bonded with him. We're still good friends to this day. And it became really difficult when we had to act out the crucifixion scene. During that scene, by the way, they have music that plays throughout Easter pageant. And so I had the honor, I guess, to sing Via Dolorosa by Sandy Patty. And just, again, talks about Jesus's journey to the cross. And it's a powerful song, and it's very hard to sing. It was very hard to sing and portray as Mary at the same time. And so finally we get to the cross, and I'm standing there looking up at one of my best friends, and he's also, dressed up and looking like Jesus. And I'm standing there and I'm just looking up at him singing the song, and I just start crying. And I was just reminded of not only what Jesus did for us, but I had never thought about Mary's perspective, to stand there and watch her child go through that and her do nothing. She wasn't able to do anything. And it, and I'm not a mom, but it really gave me that perspective of I can't do anything to help my child and what they're going through. And it was just really a lot to handle and a lot to witness. And Joey, who played Jesus, he challenged every one of us to make eye contact with him when he was up there. And I did almost the entire time. And I still give him a hard time about it. I'm like, I can't believe you made me do that. But yeah, and it was just a whole different experience that really, I don't know, it just made me think differently, not just about the crucifixion in Jesus's part of the story, but in hers as well. And the fact that he leaves, I believe as John, to take care of her. Yeah. Behold your mother, and he's still thinking about her even when he's on the cross. And I just think that's very beautiful, because her journey of motherhood was honestly mysterious and sorrowful, but also joyful. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And I think really the reason Mary could be filled with faith during that moment is because she was obviously a woman who listened to God's voice, right? And I think because she was listening to God's voice, she knew the fact that she could trust him, and that this was not going to be, even though this was a very, very painful moment, this was not going to be the last time that she got to see her son. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Savannah, what can we take home with us from Mary's story?
Oh, there's so much, honestly. I think the first thing is being able to say yes to God and being able to put all of your trust into him. That's so hard to do, in any situation, but she's a good example of what it looks like to be a faithful disciple and just willingly and faithfully say yes. The other thing is her humility. And I just think, because think about it, like, I'm the mother of God, right. Or mother of Jesus. And she was so humble about it. And I don't know, I just think there's a sweetness to her and adds a little tenderness to certain parts of life, know. And I just feel like being able to play her and view things from her perspective, I'm able to look at things a little differently. And I just think there's a lot that we can learn from her. But I think the big thing is, we hit it already, is that she's such a faithful disciple and servant. Yeah. And so I just think that's so beautiful. And to do so at such a young age. And I think of 2 Timothy, where it's, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. And I think that can apply to her. Yeah, absolutely. And so, because she's a great role model in that sense. That's
so good. I think my takeaway from Mary's story is that God can use anybody. Especially in Mary's culture, in her context. She was the lowest of the low, y'all. Yeah. Like, basically society was based on these tiers, right? And where she was living and who she was a Jewish woman. She was on the bottom rung. Her geographical location, as far as the Jewish people goes, she was in the backwoods. Yeah. Like, she was, imagine her as the good old country gal, because that's kind of where she was. Yeah. She was not wealthy. Nope. And just in the societal context, in that society, you could fall down the the rung of what would you say, society? Classes, yes, class structure. You could fall down the rung of classes, but you really could not raise yourself up.
No.
And so she was down there at the bottom. It would be a very hard climb for her to move anywhere up. And really she didn't. So talk about humility. She definitely was a woman of humility. But my point here is that God can literally use anyone. If she can, if God can use, good old backwoods Mary, and a 13-year-old girl, he can use you. And all you have to do to be used by God is to be willing to say yes. And just like in Mary's story, she said yes, and she was able to continue to trust God. And I think that's what we have to do. We got to say
beautiful.
Yes and learn to trust God every step of the way.
And it's just so beautiful, and almost like a good display of a childlike faith. Of just believing and just trusting. And so I think that's awesome.
Well, that was an amazing conversation. And Savannah, I'm so glad that you were able to just bring all that knowledge to us today. I feel so learnt right now. But we're going to do, on every Church Girl Gang episode, we have a tradition. If you guys don't know, if this is your first time joining us, of doing what we like to call something fun. And something fun is just literally a moment of fun where we're going to celebrate together something great that's happened in our lives. And if you have something fun that you would like to share with us, we would love to share it right here on the podcast. All you have to do is drop it on our Facebook page, on our Instagram. You can slide into our DMs anytime, girl. Just leave it there, and we would love to share it. But Savannah, what is your something fun that we can celebrate with you?
Okay, 2 things.
Yeah.
So you probably heard it on the last podcast that I was on at Chosen, but I'm a choir director, middle school choir director, and today we had our UIL concert and sight reading contest. And, oh, girl, it's a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. I can breathe, sleep, and eat again.
We love it.
And so that was really good. The kids did really well. They really stepped up, and I'm just so proud of them. So that's one.
Okay.
And then the next one is Wednesday is actually my birthday.
Okay.
So I will be 24.
Yes.
And I'm super excited. I get to celebrate with my kids this year, with my students.
Your students?
Yeah, I should probably reword that.
She said her kids.
Well, they are mine.
Yes.
They're mine.
The students that you teach. We love it. Oh, that's so good. Well, I'm so glad that we got to celebrate with you. I hope you guys are clapping in your seats wherever you're listening to this podcast and that you're celebrating with us. But this has been a great podcast today. I'm so glad that we got to have these conversations. And I just want to challenge you as we leave. Go out and say some yeses to God. Do not be afraid to say yes. We know we can trust him because we have seen him be faithful. If you need a faith-filled story to hear, go back and read Mary's story.
Yes.
And remember that you can trust God. Mary could trust God. You can trust God. Things are going to work out great. But before we go, I just want to remind you, leave a 5-star review for us. Give us those 5 stars. Go down at the bottom of wherever you're watching and type something that you loved about this episode in. This is so that other girls can join us and join the Church Girl Gang.
Yeah.
We want girls to join us and be a part of our community. And listen, it really does make a big difference when you leave those 5 stars. So go do it. Or if you're on YouTube, smash the like button. Hit subscribe. We love it. But listen, we hope to hear from you soon.
Hit the notification bell.
Yes. And I don't know. Have a great week, Church Girl. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, y'all.